Today on the Full Story channel, we're going to be bringing you the Gwenpool storyline that came out first. Gwenpool is a character that started as an alternate cover to various comic books, basically just a version of Deadpool mixed with the character within the comic book. Gwenpool became a fan favorite due to her art, and they turned her into a fun character. This is the Comicstorian Full Story channel where we take the playlists off of Comicstorian and turn them into one giant video for you to enjoy at your leisure, and help you pick what comic books to add to your collection with our audio dramas. Now let's get into the first Gwenpool storyline. Howard the Duck is finding it a tad difficult to breathe as there is the high heel of the black cat in his throat. She releases him and tells him that she wants to hire him for a job. She needs him to find a woman, and if he won't help, she'll use this footage that she has of him robbing her house against him. So he asks, "Who do you want me to find?" Black Cat explains that she was conducting business on the rooftop of a building when someone came crashing through the doorway on a motorcycle shouting, "Hello, world!" She was wearing spandex and a modified-looking Hydra mask, and she had no pants on. She slides her bike into all of the thugs and then stabs one of them in the hand with a pen. "Trade your pen for your gun," then grins at the thug. "I know, terrible trade," and she opens fire on all of them. She then rides over to the box that everyone dropped. "Hey, that's what I came for." And then she rides off the rooftop shouting, "Bye, Felicia." Black Cat was left standing there wondering, who the heck was that? And as Gwenpool falls off the rooftop, she asks herself, I'm very curious how I'm going to survive this. And then she hits a moving truck filled with ducks. Furious that this crazy woman could have hurt those ducks, Howard asks who she is. Felicia tells him that she has no idea, some kind of pantsless Arctic ninja or something. "So why would you have me find her?" Well, earlier today, Felicia was meeting with her police contact in the park, and Gwenpool shot him up like crazy. So this led Felicia to assume the girl knows her somehow, so she can't get her associates involved, and Howard is in no way an associate. So Felicia leaves him with the mission: find this girl and find what she stole from Felicia, and then she walks out of the room. Howard walks back to his desk trying to figure this one out when he sees Gwenpool underneath his desk. She crawls out and Howard asks what she's doing here, trying to keep her from finding me. "Yeah, well, there's plenty of desks around town, so hide underneath one of those. But she was hiring you to find me, right?" "Right." "Well, Ducky Boy," and Gwenpool whips out pistols. I thought she might be. Howard runs out into the street while Gwenpool chases him down, opening fire on him. "Lady, please, let's talk. I have no idea who you are. I also don't want you to kill me." She leaps over a fence and she replies to him, "What's the big deal? If you die, you'll disappear from publication, and you've done that for months before, even years at a time. You'll just come back eventually." What are you talking about? You think I'm a book? Madame, I am not a book." She opens fire again. "Well, you kind of are where I'm from." "What does that even mean?" "You're all just comic book characters in my world." Howard ducks for cover and realizes, "Oh geez, I'm definitely not dealing with the same girl who's trying to kill me. I wouldn't have to keep trying if you just stopped jumping behind things." Howard gets to running again. "For a lady trying to mess with a crime lord, you're a terrible shot." "Well, I haven't been a superhero for very long." "You think you're a superhero?" "I don't know if you just saw me, but I just shrugged." You see, my dear viewers, Gwenpool got her costume and became a superhero back in Howard the Duck of Volume 0, Issue 5. She was standing outside of Big Ronnie's custom battle spandex when the end of the world seemed to be happening. Something about Battle World and a secret war. Anyway, she walked in after reading a review from Spider-Man that said that he had just been here and dropped off her list of superpowers to get a costume made. The clerk hit it fast and furious and handed her the pink outfit that she has now. When she asked where the pants are, she was told no pants, only big boots. And that's her origin. She bought the costume. Howard is shocked, but he asks what this is all about, and Gwenpool tells him that she stole that box and sold it to Hydra. Howard stops and stands up. "You did what?" "I needed money." "That's pure evil." "Nah, it's fine. The Avengers will handle it, right?" Howard quickly dials them up and gets a voicemail. "Hello, you've reached the Avengers Emergency Hotline. We are unable to assist you at this time as the Avengers are in space. To contact your local police department, please dial," and then he hangs up. And so, they get their butts to the Hydra base. They start their assault by having Howard fly her in. Well, he can't fly, so they fall in, and she throws him like a weapon at the Hydra thugs, then a knife into another's head. Howard is running around screaming the whole time, but Gwenpool grabs him and shows him the welcome mat. Well, the Hailcome mat. Gwenpool runs into the main lab where she begins shouting that she is here to stop them. And the woman with the virus is in shock. "Aren't you the one who sold us this?" "Well, yeah, but then I felt bad." The Hydra woman disabled her quickly. "You're a terrible fighter. I'm learning on the job." So Gwen has a new idea. She reaches for the box with the virus and drinks it herself. Everyone runs away from her because she is now highly contagious, and Howard asks her, "Do you have like a healing factor or something?" "Nope, I looked at that guy and assumed it was just the mumps. We've got a mumps vaccine in my world." "Kid, we have the mumps here, and we have the vaccine too. That is not the mumps." Suddenly, Gwenpool begins to grow out of control and she asks the Hydra lady for a cure. Considering that she didn't want to get infected herself, she handed it over to Gwenpool, and Gwenpool was healed. So she and Howard went back to finishing their plan. As Howard went to go turn the box into Black Cat, Gwenpool in a robe showed up and offered to buy it off Black Cat for all of her Hydra money. Of course, Black Cat took the money and the adventure was wrapped up. As she watched Black Cat walk away, Howard commented that she gave up $1 million and he thinks that she figured out how to become a superhero. And Gwenpool replies with, "I don't think I like it. That was so much money." And they both walk off into the night. And Howard asks, "So how did you end up on our world anyway? I got here through the reality nexus. Portal in the back of a wardrobe? Come on, seriously. I don't know, a tornado? Tell me! I fell into a hole chasing a rabbit. Fine!" Gwen was just chilling at the local bank waiting to deposit some stolen money when the bank teller was trying to inform her that she needs some kind of identification of sorts, and she informs the guy that she doesn't have any. She's not from this universe. Well, that's when bank robbers walk in and tell everyone to get to the ground. Gwen smiles about it and tells the teller, "Don't worry about it. She's a superhero. Just don't tell anyone." And then she puts on her mask. Stealing money? Cool, cool. But I'll bet you really wish you were robbing a blood bank. Then with a smile, she shows them her rifle. Because you're about to be out of blood soon. Get it? She opens fire on them, informing them that she prefers guns to superpowers. They return fire, so she jumps over the counter and throws a grenade back over the counter, blowing up the central area of the bank. The poor hostages see her standing triumphantly and they try to tell her, "Please don't hurt us, Ghostface No Pants Killer." And Gwen is confused because she's the hero. Well, the police don't believe her and they cuff her, throwing her into the back of the police car. In the back seat of the cop car, she manages to meet one of the robbers that survived, the hacker. Gwen and him talk it out for a second until the cop pulls over demanding their money because they aren't going to be making it to the precinct. Gwen is stunned. A dirty cop? No way! She turns to the hacker. "Quick, hack something else before he kills us!" The cop turns around. "I'm not gonna kill you. I'm gonna let you go. I'm tired of all of this crazy superhero stuff, so I'm letting you go, and I'm taking your money, which I'm sure you acquired illegally, and I'm disappearing." He steps out of the car, telling Gwen that he's gonna give her another chance. He's sure she didn't mean to cause any problems. So, he hands her the car and he walks off, and she races down the streets. "See, I knew I couldn't get arrested." And then she turns to her new sidekick Cecil to inform him that they're gonna be sleeping in the car tonight. And that is how Gwen was sent on a righteous path with a kick-ass hacker sidekick. Shortly after that, Gwen is hiding behind a statue when sentinels are walking on the front lawn of a mutant building. Cecil, the hacker, informs her that they need to apply a remote hacking device if she wants his help turning them off. So Gwen makes a break for it, dodging the lasers until she can apply the remote hacking device. She then runs away from the sentinels, begging Cecil to make them self-destruct. But Cecil informs her that she should probably get them off the front lawn first. And she tells him, "The people are paying for a good show, Cecil," which confuses Cecil because he thought the wealthy mutant clients that hired her wanted the mess to go away. And she tells him, "Not them, the people who bought this comic." "Right, you're a Truman Show thing," Cecil says, pushing the button, blowing up the Sentinels, and the head of the Sentinel goes flying through the front window. As you can see, Gwen is making a name for herself as a merc, and she returns back to her broker Ronnie to get the next job. It's a job to get rid of the alien weapons arms dealers, and when Gwen sees the check, she places her mask on her head, takes a marker, and then draws money signs over her own eyes. The broker tries to inform her that she'll die, but she ignores them and walks out, because Gwen tells her that she can't die. This is issue 1, or maybe even still a backup in another comic. She can't die this early. So she hits up a New York tour helicopter. And once it gets over the submarine that houses the alien weapon brokers, she jumps out of it, landing in the ocean. Except she doesn't exactly land in the ocean. She lands with a splat on the glass ceiling of the submarine, and she sees someone inside already shooting up the aliens. She drops inside, whispering, "Stealth scream," as she charges at an alien only to find him already dead, so she takes his gun, shoots him once, and walks off. Cecil calls her asking what she's doing because she's way over her head. She should leave right now, but she refuses to go anywhere until she resolves this mysterious murderer thing. She walks deeper and deeper until she finds a man in a Hydra uniform killing the last alien and standing in front of a furnace. And as he calls up his boss, she pushes him in, wondering who he was. She then texts her broker Ronnie, filling her in on the haul, and heads back to her place with Cecil already there. She hops right into the bathtub in her costume because she figures that the costume is probably a bathing suit. That's why she doesn't have pants. And then she realizes that having the sleeves on the costume wouldn't make sense for a bathing suit. The news then goes live with Captain America informing everyone that someone killed all of the aliens and saved the city. And Cecil tells Gwen that things may get messy if someone goes looking for her, considering that she didn't actually save the city. That's when the wall blows up and MODOK steps in. "You're the famous Gwenpool? Well, you work for me now, or else." She looks at him and then laughs at his face. MODOK is threatening me. Furious, MODOK uses his head laser to fry Cecil, killing him on the spot. Gwen begins to cry as she falls to her knees, realizing she isn't the hero of the story, She's a henchman. He brings her to the base where she meets the rest of the MODOK henchmen, and after MODOK explains his plans, he leaves them alone and Gwen gets to know her new friends. Batroc, the Leaper, the Terrible Eye, and Megatoni, and their first mission is a go. Gwen plays along because she really doesn't want to die like Cecil, so the Terrible Eye ends up flipping a car and Megatoni, Batroc, and Gwen take the prisoner out of it and they begin to race out of the scene with him. Batroc tells Megatoni to kill the guy, but instead Megatoni puts him to sleep because he feels that there's something weird about killing a guy this close. But before they can do anything else, there's a crack of lightning and Thor lands in front of the car. Gwen stops, shocked that it's Thor, and then she asks Thor how she gets her hair like that. Batroc begins to shout, "Get away from Thor, you dumb children!" And Gwen continues, "It's dry shampoo, isn't it?" Thor walks over, tearing the door off the car and pulls out the prisoner, and then she opens up a portal to walk away, except the Terrible Eye launches an explosion, stopping Thor. In response, Thor throws her hammer up to the building while Gwen gets out and begins to open fire on Thor. Batroc runs in, kicking Thor into the nearby building, and when Gwen tries to stop her, Thor tells her, "Away, pink fly," swatting her down. Thor then walks over to Batroc and beats him down before knocking out Megatoni. Gwen begins to panic. Oh no, oh no, oh no. What's her name? What's her name? She's played by Natalie Portman in the movie. Jane! Of course, Thor stops in her tracks and slams Gwen into the wall. "What did thou say?" With lightning crackling from her eyes, she demands to know what Gwen said. And Gwen thinks quickly. "I said sprain! We're a real tight team, and when we're hurt, we tell each other our injuries." "This is very important. It sounded like you said, very well. Mayhap it was just sprain." While Thor is thinking about that though, Gwen knocks an RPG over with her foot, aims it, and launches it, killing the original target. Thor smashes the wall, telling Gwen that she has doomed hundreds. She needed a magical spell out of that individual to save an entire elven village. But that's when Terrible Eye and Megatoni inform Thor that they can take the man's magics and give it to her so that she can save the elven village. Thor takes the concoction and tells Gwen that she has her eye on her. And Gwen tells her, "You're very cool. We should do this again sometime." Later that night, MODOK is happy with the results and wondering where Pool ran off to because she's on the roof of the base trying to figure out what's going on. She's the hero, right? She's in a comic book world. She has a costume. Someone is reading this story. So why is she a henchman for MODOK? And why is Cecil dead? And what if Thor just kicked off an arc where she's gonna kill a mysterious assassin that knows her identity? Why did she say her real name? Gwen then realizes, if this is real, I'm a nobody, and MODOK's gonna kill me. I can't even get killed by Doom or Galactus. That's when Batroc walks over. "I wanna see something, Gwen. Shoot me." She tells him no, and he kicks her. She opens fire on him, irritated, but misses every shot. So he jumps in, telling her to defend herself, and when she falls down, Batroc has the information he needs. "You're a fraud. I'm going to tell on you." He walks inside and Gwen tries to stop him, but he won't listen. He considers her a liability. So she tells him she'll reveal her power to him. She knows everyone's secret, everything. Batroc stops. "If you're a telepath, what am I thinking?" She explains that that's not it. She's not from this world. She's from a world where everyone here is a comic book character, and she reads a lot of comics. He walks off telling her that is utter nonsense. And she tells him, no, it's true, that's how she stopped Thor. So he asks for proof and she tells him to think about his life before his first meeting with Captain America. Batroc tries to think about it, and then he starts to realize that it is odd he can't think of anything before that day. So she explains, you didn't exist before your first appearance. Also, you were created to be a goofy French stereotype. What? Yeah, you were named after Batrin, which means frog-like because of your jumping around. I'm a master of savate, the French art of kickboxing. At that moment, MODOK walks in, throwing his accountant out the window because the accountant can't find the existence of Gwenpool to pay her. He sees Gwen and he tells her that she needs to get a bank account, no cash payments, the MODOK company is on the up and up. Then he sees Batroc and he asks him what he wants, and Batroc walks away, nothing. Gwen heads back down to see her broker to ask if they've got any material to make pants yet, and she's told that they don't. So she tells her to get on that because she's tired of shaving her legs so much. She wants pants. Anyway, she explains that she doesn't exist in this universe, so she needs a side job since MODOK won't pay cash. And Ronnie decides to help her out by cracking an egg in her hand, and it reveals a time. She's confused by that, but Ronnie says come back after she has her citizenship. So Gwen heads off to meet with Batroc. He begins to show her how to shoot and train her how to fight, and he has a few questions for her. Such as, do these stories have happy endings? Because I've always known defeat. Gwen tells him, that's because you're a bad guy in Captain America's ongoing story. So where is the happy ending for the captain? He has fought for decades with the illusion of a meaningful victory, but the world is no safer now than it was before him. He struggles for nothing. What a fun children's story that must be. But then, time stops and Doctor Strange arrives out of nowhere. I believe you're my 1 o'clock. With the initial shock of a wizard appearing before her, Gwen explains that she needs comic book universe citizenship. He looks at the threads that make up Gwen and sees that she's not from this world. So he goes to see what world she's from. Fascinating. The world and the events of our world leave footprints or little retellings in your world. Then he sees his own movie. Benedict Cumberbatch? I can see that. Gwen looks at home and asks if she can just walk through, if she can go home. Strange tells her it's not that simple. Sorry. Then he explains that if she goes through this whole becoming a citizen of the Marvel Universe, her real family will find it hard to remember her. They may even forget her. Saddened by this, Gwen tells him it's probably for the best. Very well, Strange says as he pulls her birth out of the real world and moves it into the Marvel Universe. He takes her home and he asks her, is there anything else I can do for you? So Gwen looks down at her backpack and pulls out Cecil's skull. Is there a way that I can talk to my friend for real? And Strange rubs his chin. While everything seems to be going well, there's one slight problem that came out of all of this. MODOK was looking for information on Gwen, and he couldn't find anything until literally, magically, out of nowhere it appeared in front of him. He knew something was off, and he's going to kill her because she must be fake. So after the next mission briefing, he asks Gwen to stay behind so that he can, handle this. MODOK confronts her, telling her, you thought you could trick the smartest person in the world, but I have discovered you have no powers, no skills, no training, nothing to suggest you are anything more than a normal person. She asks, did Batroc tell you? Batroc knew? Aw, dang it. So how did you kill your predecessor? I pushed him into a furnace when he wasn't looking. So MODOK hits her with his head laser. With the smoke all around the room, MODOK begins to head out of the room until he hears a voice. Hey, smartest guy on the planet, thanks for the money for the shield generator. She then throws pink smoke bombs, telling him that she's been waiting for a chance to get revenge for Cecil. Then using the training that Batroc's given her, she shoots out the head gem, giving him his laser ability. He charges at her, so she ducks, slides beneath him, sticking a bomb to his leg. Pissed off, MODOK shows her all of his weapons, and he grabs her with a claw, so she kicks him in the eye. Then using her swords, she cuts off his robot legs and kicks him onto the ground using the kicks that Batroc taught her. Thinking she's won, she approaches him, but he blasts off and begins launching missiles at her. She runs for it, shouting, how could you fit all of that in there? You've got to be running out of ammo soon. No, I'm not. She takes cover and decides that she only has one shot left, and she grabs Cecil's skull and she throws it out at MODOK. Cecil, I choose you! It explodes and Cecil's spirit appears out of nowhere. Gwen then pokes her head out. Hi Cecil, I missed you. You're a ghost. Dr. Strange enchanted your skull so that I could summon you. I'm a ghost? What? I'm dead? Yeah, we can definitely talk about that later, but first I need you to ghost hack MODOK. MODOK? Oh right. He killed me. Cecil jumps into MODOK's body and begins to tear apart his programming, which launches him into space. Gwen walks over laughing, and then, after a very long paragraph, explains everything to Cecil. Batroc and the rest of the henchmen walk in, wondering what just happened, and Gwen smiles, thinking to herself, I was right! I'm the hero! I sent MODOK into space, everyone! But Batroc calls her over to the computer to inform her that the client would like to talk to the new head of the Agents of MODOK. Standing victorious, she knows that she's an actual superhero in her own series, not just some random MODOK henchman. She really thought she was a henchman for a while there. And from behind her, Batroc says that it's nice that she defeated MODOK, but, well, his employer is on the line wanting to talk to her. Gwen says that she's sorry. She just defeated MODOK like 60 seconds ago. Sue her for wanting some fresh air. Tony steps in asking, why does Gwen not find the person giving MODOK orders as scary as MODOK himself? And Gwen decides that maybe she should take the call. Back inside, a figure tells Gwen that he would like to meet their new representative since MODOK is now gone, so they can continue their working relationship, but they must be discreet about it. After the call, Gwen says that she would love to stick around and help and all, but she'd rather just go back to freelancing. And Batroc tells her that they're all just mercenaries here, so they need to stick together, which is why they're sending her in as the representative, since she defeated MODOK with no superpowers. Gwen says that she's pretty sure she's just in a comic book that got renewed or something, and Batroc tells her that makes no sense, and then he hands her a Metro Pass stating, remember, discreet means street clothes and public transportation. Over in Gwen's room, she begins to tell Cecil the Ghost that she appreciates him not using his ghost powers and watching her change. Real solid ghost move there. And he says, yeah, about that. Can we talk about the whole returning as a ghost thing? She shouts, oh my gosh, of course! Dr. Strange said given the circumstances of your death, you would be returned to avenge your death and reach peace. But Cecil stops her, stating that he's pretty sure he was at peace. All he remembers is being zapped to death and then waking up after his skull was thrown. Gwen runs over grabbing a book, stating that Dr. Strange also gave her this book, so he should probably read it while she's out. And she hands him the book, but it just drops through his hands as she says, yeah, learn some tips. A short while later in the subway, Gwen begins to panic as she sees who just sat in front of her. Miles Morales stares at Gwen as she nervously says that she's totally a big fan of his work, you know, and she motions her hands into shooting webs. Thwip, thwip. Miles' eyes widen because his secret identity was just outed, and he rushes out of the train car. She runs chasing after him, asking what's wrong, and as she steps out, a web wraps around her arm and yanks her up. He shouts, "Who are you? And how do you know who I am?" Inside Gwen's head, she tells herself that she needs to make sure she doesn't sound crazy. So she tells him that she's just a normal girl with secret knowledge from a dying watcher. He begins to think about that for a moment. He tells her, "Okay, but what am I supposed to do with you now?" Gwen suggests that maybe they should probably just get on the next train, or they can hang from the ceiling in the subway. And a little while later, Gwen walks with Miles to his school as he tells her that he would love to sit and talk about watchers and dangerous knowledge and whatever, but he's already late for class, and suddenly a giant explosion goes off in the school. Miles says that he's gotta hurry and get in there, so he rushes in behind a bush to change, and Gwen asks, "How are we gonna do this? Web slingshot through the window?" "Probably web slingshot through the window." And Miles stops her, telling her that she's just a normal person, and she responds by telling him that he's not a fireman, so they should just focus on saving the day. So as Miles puts on his mask, he remembers that his last encounter, it got tore up, which is why he was on this subway to begin with. His mask doesn't work with holes in it. So Gwen holds the mask together while Miles webs it back into one piece, and the two of them rush into the burning building. As Miles searches for survivors, Gwen begins to cough, stating that next time she needs to get a flame-resistant suit. And Miles says that he knew he shouldn't have brought her in here. He then webs Gwen and a few of the survivors together. Gwen asks if she's just supposed to give them some comforting hugs and then Miles flings her and the survivors out of the window. After cleaning up the school, Miles heads back home alone, and as he enters his home, his mother says a friend from school stopped by. Miles thinks about it for a moment, and then Gwen steps out from the corner telling him, "You've got to study, buddy!" Miles' mother says that she's glad that everyone at the school is safe, but Gwen mentioned that they have a team assignment to do. Gwen follows up by telling him, "Yeah, totally big project!" And then she leans in towards Miles, stating that they need to figure out the mysterious bombing. Miles tells his mother that they do, and she says that's fine, just make sure you keep the door open. Back at the giant mobile fortress that the entire organization of mercenaries works out of, Batroc says that it seems like Gwen didn't make it to the meeting. Soon her display shows an incoming call from space, and Tony begins to panic, thinking that it could be MODOK. Batroc tells him to relax as he answers the call, and aliens appear on the screen, looking rather angry and speaking in their weird alien language. And as they go on, they hold up a picture of Gwen, who took a selfie after killing another alien like them. Back over in Miles' room, Gwen looks around and Miles tells her that he appreciates the help back at the school, which really wasn't helping, but this is where they should really part ways. Gwen says that they can split now, but she totally knows secret stuff here. Gwen then asks Miles if he remembers when he snuck into the school and ran into a guy in an abandoned art room. Miles says, yeah, he totally forgot about that. Gwen goes on to state that at that time he didn't see it, but that guy was actually hiding something, so they need to figure out who that guy is. Miles says that the kid's name is Damien and they have English lit together, though he's not really sure where this is going. Gwen then tells him that he's only in this universe because in the other universe he was important. Important characters made it here from the Ultimate Universe when it was destroyed. She continues stating that Damien was brought here because maybe the writer didn't want to drop the whole school bomber storyline. Miles stops her, asking what is she even talking about? Writer, Ultimate Universe? So she says, okay, wait, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I come from another world, one where I can see what happens in this universe, so just trust me on this. And Miles tells her that she's not making it very easy. A little while later, over at Damien's house, the doorbell rings while he's working on another bomb. As he gets up to check on the door, he sees no one there. But before the door shuts, Gwen sticks her foot in to catch it. He heads back to his room in a hurry, and Miles is holding the explosive, asking why did he do it. Damien asks how did he find him, and Miles thinks of the school directory and says it was my spider sense. Damien then goes on stating that he bombed the school because of the lottery school system and its symbol of inequality. He then goes on explaining that it's just an unjust system, and Damien begins to think that that's actually the first time that he's said it out loud before. Miles then asks if he should just knock him out before he hands him over to the cops but Damien begins to flee out of the room, and as he does, Gwen jumps in his way holding a gun shouting, "Hi! Any last words, foul villain?" Gwen fires her gun and Miles jumps in, knocking Damien down. And then she says, "Great! Now he's just passed out." And Miles shouts, "Because you tried to kill him!" A few moments later, Damien's mother runs in asking what's going on and begins to panic seeing Damien on the floor. Gwen starts to climb out the window telling her to chill out. Her supervillain in the making is totally fine. No thanks to Spider-Man here. She then runs into the yard telling Miles to hurry up. They have to figure out how to take him out another day, but before she can get very far ahead, Miles throws a web rope around her neck and pulls her back. He demands to know why, and Gwen says that he tried to blow up the school. He isn't important, he's just a plot device, a B storyline. Miles tries to understand, but Gwen says, "You're just in a comic book." Gwen then shoots the web, stating that she knew they should have started with a fight. That's why they team up after a misunderstanding. That's how superhero team-ups work. You fight and then you team up. She then pulls out her knife and Miles punches her. After tying her up to a telephone pole, Gwen tells Miles that he's supposed to pull his punches, and he tells her he did, but now he's leaving her for the police. The last thing he's going to do is let a murderer run around on the loose, and then he swings away. Gwen then begins to cry, stating stating that she's not crazy. Later, Gwen is booked and placed into the jail where she sits in her cell. She tells the officers that she would like to see her lawyers. After being ignored, she lays on her bed, and then suddenly she hears a bomb go off in the distance. The officers begin to run towards the sound, but then there's another explosion knocking everyone away. And through the hole in the wall, an officer sees a mobile fortress, and Gwen says that her lawyers are here. Batroc helps Gwen, stating that they found her because they saw her on the news and it looked like she had a busy day. And that's when Tony fills her in that they're currently working on a defense against the aliens that are currently in around to take over the planet. As everyone begins to leave, Gwen stands there thinking how all of this really isn't that fun. The comic book world should be more fun. This story begins in Times Square, where Gwen finds herself being chased by squid-like aliens known as the Dithyrians. Since she took a selfie after killing one of their kind, they decided that it was time to come to Earth and get their revenge. But after catching a baby pig dressed up as Gwenpool, the aliens decided to compare the photo, and it's a perfect match! Meanwhile, over at the Bay Ridge area, Batroc calls Gwen from the mobile base as she heads over to meet with their contact, asking how is it that she managed to escape the Dithyrians. She tells him that it was easy. She dressed up a pig in her costume because all aliens can't tell the difference between the species. Batroc asks if she knows this because of comics. She tells him no, it's because they're racist. They are the enemy, they are aliens, and they are racist. That's why. As Gwen goes on, Batroc stops her and tells her to just make sure that she leaves a good impression with their client. Their organization needs assignments. In the back, Terrible Eye shouts, "Tell Gwen we need money! MODOK gave us money!" Gwen says yeah, she knows. Is the address correct? Because this place looks like it's somewhere that her grandpa would come to retire. After hanging up, Gwen rings the doorbell to the client's home and the door slowly creaks open. As she walks in, she says that the spooky automatic door is more like it, so that's cool. After walking around the house for a bit and finding no one, she says judging by the fine decorations, she's pretty sure their client is Dracula. So they're meeting Dracula. She then asks Cecil if his ghost sense is picking up on the king of the vampires. Cecil appears in a chair next to her, telling her no, he does not sense Dracula. He's pretty sure that he doesn't even know if he could. In fact, she shouldn't even be in here. Gwen says, what else are you gonna do? You're dead! But judging from the silence, that was probably too soon. While the two of them go on, the study door opens and out steps a plain old man. The man shakes Gwen's hand, telling her that his name is Vincent, and all Gwen can say is that he's so normal. Vincent then takes a seat at his desk, telling her that he clearly remembers not inviting ghastly specters into his home. Gwen tries to say that he's with her, but Cecil tells her it's alright. He just wanted to make sure she got here safe anyway, so he'll catch her back at the base. Vincent tells Cecil, thank you for respecting his wishes. May peace be with him soon. To which Cecil tells him, thanks? Once the two of them are alone, Vincent explains how they live in a very turbulent world, one where superheroes and villains battle over the fate of the planet every single day. Gwen mentions that she knows of a world without superheroes. It's pretty boring. Vincent then goes on to say that the main reason he would like to continue working with them at MODOK is because they are in fact not superhuman, but rather just normal people. Even Terrible Eye, she's just a very nice young lady who happened to find a powerful magical headpiece, and everyone else is just agents with guns. Gwen asks, other agents? But rather than answer that question, Vincent goes on to tell her that they are his kind of people, which is why he needs them to handle the Dithyrian problem. However, there will be a payment by the truckloads if they can handle it peacefully. A short while later, in the subway, Gwen tries to figure out how exactly she's supposed to wipe out a bunch of super advanced aliens, because now thinking back on it, that sounds pretty hard. But while she thinks, she sees two officers making their way into the station. The officers spot her and they radio in that they found her, but as they go to talk to her, they see Gwen with her head in her backpack. She pulls her head out, wearing her mask, shouting that she isn't going to jail! And that's when she hears the aliens beginning to talk. She looks over to see the Dithyrians walking towards her, and she says, that's cool. Not only do the cops want to arrest me, the aliens are working with the cops. Super cool! Not really though. As everyone begins to surround her, one officer shouts that she's under arrest for destroying a bunch of stuff, and these aliens want to take her away or something. They don't speak very good English. Gwen notices that there's a passing train and runs over to the crowd, jumping onto the back of it, telling him that if they ever figure it out, never get back to her. Okay, bye. A little while later, Tony starts to treat Gwen's wound on her arm, and she asks if there's a reason that their base is like hanging upside down or anything like that. Tony dismisses the question, asking how did this even happen? Gwen explains that she may have jumped onto a speeding train, but other than that, why is she on the news? Tony tells her that it seems the NYPD and the aliens are working together, so that would be newsworthy, which means they're screwed. His phone then begins to ring, and Gwen asks if he's going to answer that. He tells her, nah, it's just debt collectors back from when he didn't have health insurance and had to go to the hospital. Gwen says that he won't won't have to worry about that soon. The client gave her a job and is offering a truckload of money, and right now everyone needs to meet up on the bridge. The main room's the bridge, right? While rounding everyone up, Gwen begins to hear laughing coming from Terrible Eye's room, and she walks in. She sees Cecil and another girl sitting there and asks who they are. Sarah jumps up shouting, "Oh my gosh, it's me, Terrible Eye!" And she hugs her and tells her that they never get to see each other out of costume, do they? She goes on to state that she shouldn't be keeping the mask on for too long. Sometimes she'll forget things, and sometimes she just needs a break. Gwen says, right, she remembers a long while ago that she was having a conversation with a rock. Sarah picks up the rock and says, how can she explain it? The rocks, actually she really doesn't know. Maybe when she's back in character she'll remember. Gwen tells her that's okay, she doesn't care about the rocks, but she does have a job, so they all need to have a house meeting. Once everyone gathers up in the command room, Gwen tells everyone that their client has asked for them to eliminate the Tithidians again. There's a few problems with it though. The Tithidians are working with the police and they have no clue where they are. They also have some crazy overpowered weapons. However, she has a solution, since they only want her. She'll go back to Times Square and call them all out. Meanwhile, to keep the police busy, Batroc will crash the United Nations meeting. While they chase him, Cecil will ghost hack the police computers with a flood of false reports. Terrible Eye, or now Sarah, will create a bunch of illusions making everyone think the banks are being robbed. So long as it all goes according to plan, she will be in Times Square killing all of the aliens. Cecil then asks Gwen why does she sound so confident about this plan, and she tells him because she also has a secret plan. However, she can't reveal it right now until the super cool dramatic music begins. As the night begins to set, Gwen begins to get into position waiting for Batroc to report in. However, while waiting in the alleyway, Gwen notices that there are cops there, which means Cecil didn't put in the false reports. Gwen frantically tries to call everyone asking why they're late, and then she notices a shadow walking up on her. Vincent steps out, telling her that he was hoping that they could talk. Gwen says that she's about to pull off that big alien killing job, so right now isn't the awesomeness of times, but that's when Cecil appears from the wall shouting that the Tithidians found their base and captured everyone. Gwen asks how they found it, and Vincent says that it was actually him that informed them. Gwen asks why would he do that, and Vincent tells her because her plan was to create a massive firefight in the middle of Times Square while disabling the efficiency of the city police. The job was supposed to be handled peacefully, and that was clearly not going to be that. Gwen then asks how did he find out, and Vincent plainly tells her that he bugged her when she came to his house. Nanobots in the air. Cecil says they need to hurry and get out of there, but Vincent shouts, telling him to be quiet. He then goes on to state how at first he thought the Tithidians were the problem, but now it seems that they are the problems. He grabs Gwen by the arm, telling her that she will meet her friends soon, but first he wants to hear more about this world without superheroes. It sounds marvelous! She takes out her gun and shoots Vincent in the side of the head, telling him, no, I think I'm just gonna go save my friends. And as Gwen pulls away, Vincent's grip doesn't release. He looks back, showing the exposed part of his Doombot face, and he tells her, you're not going anywhere. Vincent explains that his origin was that he is a Doombot who was raised by an old man who liked to enjoy a peaceful life until the superheroes showed up. He then stops when he sees Gwen on the phone asking if she's even listening. He's telling his origin story here, and she tells him mostly, but Vincent starts to float, shooting electricity, shouting, how dare you ignore Vincent Doonan? After running through the street, Gwen says that she wasn't ignoring him, she was just calling in her secret backup plan. As the phone picks up, Gwen asks Miles' mother if he's home, to which she tells him no, he's actually out, but she can leave a message. Suddenly Gwen realizes that her secret backup plan is not very well thought out. She turns back after throwing her grenade, shouting that she's just trying to stop aliens like him. Vincent knocks the grenade away, telling her that she doesn't understand. Aliens, mutants, radioactive whatevers, you all disturb the peace. And it turns out that you are far worse than the Tithidians. In fact, they are being quite respectful in my home, keeping an eye on the others until I return. Meanwhile, over in Bay Ridge, Batroc says that he doesn't like this. Their captors let the pig make a mess in the corner, and they're just leaving it there. Back in Times Square, Gwen crawls under a car asking Cecil if he has had any luck in hacking into Vincent, but as Vincent pulls Cecil out of him, he tells her, I wasn't able to. Vincent has some magic protecting him. Gwen sighs, stating, of course, he's a Doombot. And then an officer leans down, telling Gwen that she's under arrest for shooting up Times Square, along with a bunch of other things. While Vincent starts destroying everything, shouting, look what you're making me do! Gwen tells the officer that there's a Doombot over there, maybe she should prioritize a bit. After crawling out, Gwen asks for the officer's name, and she tells her that her name is Officer Gray, but Gwen cuts her off, telling her, great, you're no longer an extra, and by the laws of the narrative that drives our existence in this fictional world, we will meet again! Also, Vincent is coming this way, so watch out. Officer Gray tells the others to focus on Vincent, but as more officers show up, one officer asks why is that police car going the other way. The other officers with him tell him that sometimes people have a day where they just don't feel like issuing citations to supervillains. But in that car is Gwen speeding off, saying how this car might be too useful. Back with Officer Gray, Vincent tells her that they should de-escalate the situation. He will start by completely leaving it, and he jets off. A short while later, over at the mobile base, Gwen tells Cecil that they have a real problem on their hands here. She's out of ammo, and they're fighting a long-lost Doombot. The super secret backup plan failed, and there are some aliens running around. Also, did she mention that there was a Doombot? Gwen lays her head on the table asking what is she supposed to do, and then sees a doorway with someone walking in it. She jumps up and runs after the man asking who he is, and the man says that he's just another field agent, though MODOK never sends them out. Speaking of, where is he? Their checks are kinda late. He then continues to walk into the barracks, revealing an entire team just sitting around, and the man says that MODOK never sends them out to see the kind of action that she does. And Gwen stares at him and says, well, you're about to. The next morning, Gwen drives the mobile base into Bay Ridge, shouting over the intercoms that she's here to eat some calamari. Over in the Tithidian ship, the commander tells the assistant to go ahead and decloak the ships, but what is calamari? The assistant tells him that it's a food that the humans make out of little ocean things that they kind of look like, and the commander says that's gross. Gwen asks, ships? And then suddenly, several Tithidian spaceships appear out of the sky. She looks around asking where's the battle mode for the base and begins frantically pushing buttons. And Cecil tries to tell her where it is, but through her many button presses, she's not quite listening. He then appears on the control panel shouting, here, push this button! I can't because I'm dead. Gwen pushes the button and then the machine guns and missiles spring out of the base. She says, very cool. And she stares at the control panel again and says that she already forgot which one to push. But before Gwen can fire, Vincent appears before the base, telling her that he never meant for things to escalate like this, especially not here, damn it. Gwen tells him that he backed the wrong horse, baby. Now it's personal. Now go get those Tithidians to release my amazing friends and we can go back to fight in the ocean or something. Vincent flies down into the Tithidians, telling them that he doesn't want any violence here, though they can still kill her. Batroc tells him that that's very classy. You truly are the worst boss that I've ever had. The Tithidians point all of their guns at Tony and Gwen says fine, and then she points the base's guns at an older couple walking outside. Gwen shouts that she'll do it. She doesn't even know these people. She very much likes her friends. So either fix this or she will kill off some random background characters. Vincent stares for a moment and then begins to fire electrical blasts at the aliens. She fires her cannons at the Tithidian ships, destroying them, and then the ship starts to go down towards the homes. Vincent shouts that he's sorry for breaking into the Cooper's house, but this is an emergency if they can't tell by now. The remaining Tithidians begin firing at the mobile base's legs, blowing it away, causing the base to crash down. And Gwen shouts to Ronnie, asking if it's ready, and she tells her that she's just finished. Though this is kind of pointless. She then shouts that this will work because it wouldn't if it was just generic henchmen. Release the pool boys! The base platforms drop and outstorm a squad of henchmen, now dressed in Gwen's costume. Ronnie says that she understands now that she has no more pink fabric to give Gwen pants, right? And Gwen tells her, this is totally worth it. But while the pool boys begin to push back the forces on the ground, the other Tithidian airships begin to focus the fire on the mobile base. As the base begins to fall, Gwen shouts from the top in one of MODOK's escape chairs. She lands picking up Batroc and the others, and then the base continues to fall. Vincent flies up to try and catch it before it falls onto a house, and he shouts that he's sorry that he has to do this, and he throws it. The Tithidian commander says that they were fools to pursue Gwen, and the assistant says, you are a poet, sir. The base then crashes into the other spaceships, destroying everything remaining in the sky, and afterwards, with the Tithidians taken care of, Gwen calls Officer Gray to tell her that it's safe for her to come in now. Which she does, and she proceeds to arrest all of the pool boys. Gwen watches and tells everyone that once they get their new base of operations up and running, they've got themselves a real diddle of a jailbreak on their hands. Batroc tells her no, there will be no jailbreak. Tony says that everything is gone. Everything they had was inside of that base that was just thrown and destroyed. Batroc goes on to state how under MODOK they had leadership, they were profitable, and they didn't cause any undue trouble. So as of now, it is time for this group to dissolve. Gwen shouts, wait, I saved you, the aliens are dead, no civilians were even hurt, I did the right thing, and Batroc tells her that she did. But sometimes it doesn't matter. There's no one better at fighting Captain America than him, and nobody who loses to him either. So this is goodbye. Sarah shouts, the winds call me! And she walks off while Tony says maybe they can get coffee sometime. With everyone leaving, Gwen turns to Cecil, telling him that at least she has him. Maybe they can go on a road trip in the cop car, but Cecil stops her, telling her that he would like to go visit his family by himself. But when he gets back, they can. Gwen hangs her head in her arms, stating, no, she gets it. Bye. Ronnie sits down telling Gwen that she thinks she did a good job. She remembers when she used to work and there was so much damage that nobody got paid, so she can still offer her some jobs. Gwen puts her mask back on, and though she's crying, she says that's great, because right now she's in the mood for the most insane, self-destructed, stupid, dangerous job that Ronnie has. It was just another night for Gwen when she suddenly realizes that she's in a cell. And not like an NYPD cell, but an actual castle cell. As Gwen gets up looking through the barred window, she says that this is different. Surely there's a reason why she's here, right? All she has to do is think. Thinking back, she remembers going to Ronnie's for some work, and then seeing Mega Tony and him completely ignoring her. She shouts out that this isn't helping, and that she just needs to get out of here. And that's when there's a clink at the door. Gwen grabs a stick and kicks down the door, shouting, "No evil captor will kill me!" And as she wildly swings her stick, asking, "Who's there?" a voice from under the door asks, "Gwen?" Gwen shouts back that, "No, she's Gwen!" And then Mega Tony pushes the door off, stating, "No, it's me. Anyway, I'm leaving. So good luck with whatever it is you're doing." Gwen runs up, telling Tony to wait! Her totally unfair knowledge of the comic book realm should help them get out of whatever this place is. Except that this is more of a sword and sorcery dungeon, so... She then nudges Tony, stating that at least she's got herself a cleric, right? Right? Yeah? Tony says no, he's a scientist, and not even at the moment because he doesn't have his equipment. As the two talk about it, they hear a croaking, and as they turn the corner, they find a giant room filled with frog people. Gwen whispers, stating, "I know this situation. No memories. Captured. No gear. This is level 1! All we have to do is figure out the puzzle. It is right over there with the hanging chain." She charges into the room, stating that she wished she had rolled a rogue, but since she's a fighter, she isn't sneaking by them. She cracks one of the frogmen and then jumps on the hanging chain, which conveniently drains the room and sucks the frog people away. As the last one is pulled down, he shouts, "To turn back! Escape before the unkillable beast finds you!" Gwen and Tony stare for a moment, trying to figure out what that meant. And then another voice calls out from the shadows to Gwen. Gwen shouts that it's another frog and it knows her name! But Batroc and Sarah walk out, and Batroc tells her, "Always with the slurs." The group begins to go over what they know, which isn't actually anything. But then another voice echoes from the halls, telling them to come this way for protection. The group heads in the direction where the voice came from, and Gwen says that it sounds like some kooky old-timers going to give them some cryptic exposition. As everyone walks into a seemingly convenient shop, Gwen tells everyone, "Look, it's a fantasy Costco!" The shopkeeper tells them that they're going to need some armor if they're going to take on the unkillable beasts, and my prices are very reasonable. Gwen spins around, cutting off the shopkeeper's head, shouting, "Look, they're slashing prices!" Batroc asks, "How did you?" And Gwen says, "It's because I know everything here. It's a game, and everyone knows the same rules that I do." Just then a black mist begins to rise out of the shopkeeper, and a fiery figure tells them that it looks like a level 1 decided that she knows the tricks and traps of the deadliest dungeon. It goes on telling her, "You must be wondering why you're all here. Well, it's because you're all mercenaries. You like violence and money? Well, now you're gonna have to go through a dungeon crawl. A raid if you wish." Gwen stares and tells the figure, "You're Arcade." The figure tries to hide himself. "No, I'm not." But eventually he rips his cloak off, telling her, "Fine, yes, I'm Arcade. Since you've ruined the shopkeeper scene, you must now go through the dungeon slaying enemies and solving puzzles if you want to have a chance at fighting me." Arcade laughs as he fades away, and Gwen starts going through the shopkeeper's inventory and giving everyone equipment, shouting that it's time for them to suit up. Once everyone is ready, the team pushes through, fighting the frog people from before, and finally they reach the end of the level, as depicted by the large wooden door with the word "Beast" painted on it. Tony pulls out his dagger, stating that he is done with this place, they should just hurry up and leave. And as he walks in, a severed hand is thrown out the door, and Tony stumbles back, stating, "I did a dumb thing." Out from the doorway, Deadpool walks out, reattaching his hand, stating, "First Goonie frogs, and now Batroc the Leaper's little gang? How many baddies of medieval hosiery do I have to kill to get out of here?" Deadpool grabs Batroc by the throat and he jumps through a wall, shouting, "Oh! You just bashed the freshman through the floor! You unlocked the secret basement level!" As Deadpool slams Batroc into the ground again and continues talking, Gwen jumps down, cutting into him, shouting, "You talk so much! Your word balloons are probably covering all the art!" Deadpool stumbles back, and Tony shouts that that's the famously crazy and yes, unkillable beast. "Use your comic book knowledge on him, Gwen!" Gwen says that there's only one problem with that. She didn't read Deadpool. He was just a little too LOL memes. Deadpool knocks Gwen into the water, telling her, "Okay, the Deadpool comments section is officially closed." Gwen gets back up, telling him, "This isn't how you're supposed to play the game." But just as she remembers it's a game, a digital game board appears with everyone on it. Gwen jumps back up into the fight, giving everyone individual commands, and the group manages to stop Deadpool where he stands. Everyone continues to keep Deadpool down, but after being set on fire, Deadpool tells them, "That's enough of this pretending that we're in medieval fantasy. It's time to use the guns that I snuck in." As he opens fire, he hits Gwen and she falls back as Tony tries to heal her. But just as the healing is finished, Deadpool charges after Tony, and Gwen trips him, shouting, "You always protect the healer!" Everyone surrounds Deadpool as Sarah then casts a paralyzing spell, and Gwen says that it's time to chop this boss up. Deadpool then asks, wait, what's going on here? And Gwen tells him that he's just a guest star in her book, so she wins. Deadpool thinks about it and he says, now I get it. We're in your book. You're a fellow fourth wall breaker. How fun. He jumps up, grabbing and shattering the game board, and says that he'll show her how it's really done. She falls and says to herself, everything looks so different suddenly. And Tony asks how. Deadpool punches him, telling him, Gwen there just gave it all away and made your little brain realize the horrifying light of all reality before you. He then tosses his swords, hitting Batroc and Sarah, and shouts, our little encounter is governed by an outside force. And if that's the case, you're in big trouble. Deadpool punches Gwen and says that you may think that you're in a comic so you get the special protection. Because why? You're so popular? Well, I've never heard of you. I've been in hundreds of issues, countless series, comics, video games, TV shows, and so much merchandise. He pulls out his knife, going on, telling her, you first appeared as a backup in a Howard the Duck special only because they weren't sure if anyone would even like you. You are the last person who could kill me. She coughs up, realizing what's going on. Oh God, he's right. But if he's so powerful, why is he trapped here by Arcade? Why play out the story? And Deadpool tells her, well, because we all live here, right? No one says anything, and Deadpool tosses the knife, telling them, Arcade is the real bad guy, huh? Man, I'm just beating up a teenager. Once they get outside, Deadpool says, this looks like a beautiful hidden land of fantasy. Or maybe that hidden door over there will bring us right to Arcade. Batroc kicks in the glass and Gwen shouts, hello? Your game is broken, Arcade. Arcade trips over himself, realizing that everyone is here to stomp him. And he tells them, job well done. Y'all made it to the second level. Let me give you your... But before he can finish, Gwen kicks him in the chin. A short while later, everyone leaves Arcade's abandoned warehouse and Deadpool looks out and says, oh, Staten Island? Just put me back in the dungeon. Tony shouts, hey, my parents live here. Deadpool tells him, I'm sorry, but it's Staten Island. Tony sighs and says, thanks, but back in there I had a purpose. Out here, I'm just a fat guy. Gwen stops him, telling him that he's like Deadpool here. We just got stuck in the plot, and I've got an idea. The next day, Tony presents his devices to Peter Parker over at Parker Industries, and Peter shouts that these are amazing. These totally remind me from when I was a teenager and had to develop things on the fly because, well, never mind why. Out in the lobby, Gwen and the rest watch the news as they cover a story on Mayor DeBasio, who is standing with Vince, the Doombot from before, who is now seen as a superhero for saving everyone. Gwen says that that's strange. The mayor exists in her world too. And Sarah says, that's interesting. Do you think that he believes that this world is fake like you? Gwen thinks and says that if there are people who are copies of people from her universe. But before she can go any further, Tony runs up hugging Gwen, telling her that he's got a job. A short while later, back over at Cecil's parents' home, they have not been liking the fact that Cecil is now a ghost, and he hides as everyone shouts that they need to hurry and exorcise him. He tells himself that all they wanted to do was say hi to his mom, but now their entire town has turned into Duck Dynasty meets Ghostbusters. Suddenly, there are several whacks and whams, and as Cecil looks out, he sees Gwen standing there next to the knocked out men, asking, how would you like to be living again, Cecil? But when she finally got to what would be her home in the real world, she nervously approached the door. What is she gonna find there? A version of herself? A family that doesn't know her? Is it just dumb? So she decided that it wasn't worth walking up to that door and learned what fate had befallen her family in this universe. When the door opened, out stepped her brother. Gwen, you finally showed up. Teddy, your voice, you're you, like the real you, not the comic book version of you. He turned to the door and grabbed her hand. It's time to go home, Gwen. They walked into the house where there was a swirling portal in the center of the floor, and he jumped in holding her hand. As he did, he told her, I'm taking you back home. Back to before you came here. The world twisted and warped around her as she tried to tell him that she didn't want this. She wanted to be in the comic book world. She likes it here. And that was it. She found herself sitting in her room playing video games. Her mother walked in telling her that she shouldn't waste her time. She should go get a job. She tries to convince her mom that looking for a job is pointless. Minimum wage is garbage, and most jobs want experience from outside New York, leaving only New Jersey as an option, and she's not moving to New Jersey. But her mother told her, you don't pay rent, you don't have bills, get your privileged hiney out in the streets, and get to looking for something that's gonna pay you that minimum wage. Oblivious to the adventure that she just had, Gwen begins to wander the streets texting her old friends. But they all graduated and moved away. She was left alone here. She walks into the comic book shop where she gets her latest pull, and she looks down excited about the Secret Wars book. She jokingly tells the owner that wouldn't it be nice to live in one of those multiverses that are fighting in the Secret Wars? What if we are a comic book universe? And the owner chuckles, "No, Gwen. Why would I want to live in a world that could be destroyed at any moment and only a few select people get to live in Battle World?" She asks if he's hiring and he says no, so she walks out happy that she searched for a job. She runs into her brother and they go talking about their lives, their real lives. Not some crazy comic book nonsense, but real life stuff. On her computer that night, select websites appear blocked, and she finds it weird, but of course there are no answers. And the next morning, her father slams the newspaper down, telling her to find a job. She tells him that she will, and her mother walks in, suggesting that if she enjoys writing, maybe she could get her GED, and then go to school for an English degree. But Gwen tells her that she doesn't need a degree. She's working on her fanfic. Some of the best-selling authors started in fanfic. Her father asks her how's that going, and she tells him that she's just waiting for some inspiration, and he snaps at her again. "I knew it! You can't even commit to something you care about!" She angrily stands up. "It's not the writing that I care about, it's fantasizing about a better world than this one." "Alright, fine! Tell me what's so bad about your cushy life, Gwen." Tears begin to fall down her face as she tells him, "I couldn't graduate high school, all of my friends moved away, and I can't even get a job at a restaurant." And he doesn't help. Again. "Honey, if you stick to something that isn't a video game or a comic book, okay, fine, I'll go to my job. Good night." Teddy, her brother, is confused. Gwen got a job? But her father continues to aggravate the situation. It's her BS sleep study thing. They don't normally have her come in at night, though. Teddy knows what this means. This is the night that she becomes Gwenpool the superhero. He needs to stop it. This is his chance. He runs to the building and he sees her staring at a giant pink orb glowing with light. She looks into it and she sees Captain America's shield, Spider-Man's webs, and Thor's hammer. And she tells Teddy, "I knew there were worlds better than this one." Teddy's confused. This isn't even how it originally happened. This isn't fair. The world isn't fair, Teddy. But look, there's a better one right there. It's so real I can almost touch it. She reaches out, but Teddy grabs her other hand and he gets knocked to the ground. He knocks over a can, which then gets shocked by the giant pink orb, and now it's smoking. She realizes that this orb could probably kill her instead of bring her to another world. And she turns off the machine and agrees with Teddy as they hug. That was a dumb idea, Teddy. I could have died. Tomorrow, I'm applying for a fast food job and I'm gonna write the first chapter of my fanfic. And if it sucks, so be it. I bet it won't. Thanks, Teddy. And that's it. The end of Gwenpool. Or is it? Because Gwen turns around and sees some words on the ground. Words that you would assume only we can see. The end. And as she questions it, the words shatter. And there stands, to be continued. Gwen moves on with her life, getting a job at a movie theater, but things are weird. She's seeing titles and credit scrolls, such as the current one. Gwenpool, Beyond the Fourth Wall Part 2. Her day moves on as she sits on the train drawing characters in her notebook, but the characters of MODOK and Batroc the Leaper look a bit weird, like something's missing from MODOK. So she adds a mohawk, like the one he had in her story. And now, that seems normal. She begins to wonder, if she saw this in a comic, is she in one now? She questions how she got on this train because she was just at work. Did she lose a chunk of her life between the pages, between the scenes of a comic? Is she just living panel to panel? She glances up. Am I seeing my thoughts as little pink boxes? Am I talking to my own captions? If there are captions, maybe. She closes her eyes and she pictures nothing but white around her. Then she looks straight ahead. She knows how the comics are drawn. She knows where the edge of the panel is. And that's when she touches it. She snaps back to reality and sees that she's just touching a woman's face, but she knows that that was real. The angle of the scene must have changed. It must have gone from straight to the side of her. She goes home where her father is supporting her ideas now that she's working and improving her life, but she walks upstairs and decides to try again. Above her, she sees the caption, but it's too high, she can't touch it. She begins to think that if that's her thoughts, then she could fill it with words, and she lets her mind wander. Over and over, she just starts thinking about random things, thoughts about everything. And eventually, the bubble gets larger and larger. The caption fills the room, pushing her into the wall, which begins to crack, and she throws herself out of a window and onto the grass in the front lawn. Her mother runs to her side, and they bring her to the hospital where they're trying to figure out why their daughter jumped out the window. And when she comes to, she sees her brother sitting next to her, and she explains to him that she thinks she's a comic book. This whole thing is her story. She then asks her brother, "What did you mean by this isn't how it originally happened? This isn't fair." He dodges the question and ignores her inquiries. He then hands her notebook and a pencil, telling her that she probably would want this back. But when she opens it, she finds the pages of her comic book characters ripped out. She thinks to herself, he knows something. I'm not crazy. And then she reaches up to touch the caption box and feels it still there. Yep, this is still happening. She takes out her pencil and she experiments again, reaching outside of the panel, and she begins to erase the lines between the panels. Because of that, she can see herself in the other panels, and she begins to talk to herself in shock. The various paneled versions of herself begin to laugh, and they begin to wonder if they're crazy. And she begins to look into oblivion, and then she wonders, what if she crawls through the hole in the comic that she made? Where will she end up? Which brings her beyond the comic to the entire spread of every page. She's now towering over her own story, walking into the oblivion space between everything. Which brings us to the start of the story, almost. Where did Teddy come from and why did he have the knowledge that he did? Well, when Gwen fell into the Marvel Universe, so did Teddy. Though she had no idea that he was there, she thought that he had died in the initial entry. While Gwen was armed with the knowledge of comic books and how to become a superhero, Teddy, on the other hand, was terrified, and he had no clue what was going on. When he went home, he found his father, but it wasn't his dad, just a guy who had no idea who he was, so he wandered the streets, terrified of this world of giants and supervillains and things exploding all the time, and then he saw her, Gwen, dressed as Gwenpool. He thought that she would help him, that they could work together to get home, but instead, he saw her slaughtering dozens of people with a machine gun, and he realized that the Gwen in this world with him was psychotic. And then behind him stands an older Miles, Vic the Doombot, and Sarah, Sorcerer Supreme. Teddy recognizes Spider-Man, and then he asks Vinny, when did Marvel get the Terminator? Miles explains that they need Teddy's help, because in the future, Gwen is going to get a lot worse. Gwen explained to Miles that she was from a world where all of the people in the universe are comics, and she used her knowledge of Miles to destroy his life. Vic continues, that's not all. She used her powers to walk through time and space, crumpling it like paper. So Miles, Vic, and Sarah all found out that Teddy ended up in this world also, and they decided they needed his help to fix all of these problems to send Gwen back home. But how did Gwen find out this information? Well, she's been reading the panels. She's still between the panels, and she's looking down on them. It's here that she got her entire memory back while putting on her costume. She read up on her own history. And she got this costume by reaching into the panels and taking the extra ones. As her parents are calling the police looking for her, she jumped back into the panel to inform Teddy that she is pretty mad at him. Teddy turns asking where she even went, and she explained that she went between the comic panels. She remembered everything. And Teddy looks at her. You're in costume. Oh good, you remember too. Then you didn't forget that you tried to rewrite time about 2 or 3 issues ago? Teddy begins to explain that he thought she died when they fell into the wormhole, and she tells him, I know, I just saw it in the comic. You know, in this world, I didn't have a fun time like you, Gwen. Should have put on a costume. How is that a normal reaction to assuming you killed your brother, Gwen? I did a lot better than you until you teamed up with the Future Squad or whatever they are and tried to rewrite my history. For what they told me about your future and what you've become, I had to help them, Gwen. Gwen's parents hear them arguing and run into the room telling her that they can help, and Gwen has had enough. She reaches over and she tears the page in half, revealing the oblivion right there. Teddy, we never left the comic. You didn't fix anything. Teddy begins to panic, but Gwen explains that all of this is an illusion. This isn't the real world, but more of a comic. Now come on, we gotta get through this whole thing before the page turns, because I'm not above admitting that I'm new to tearing holes in reality, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing right now. The Future Squad appears before her, demanding to know how she tore a hole out of the pocket universe that was created. Vinny the Doombot tells her that they aren't done. They need to prevent her future, and she pleads with them. I'm not a baddie! I don't want to become one! Can we just figure out what won't turn me into a bad guy? And then she turns to Sarah. Please, you're the only friend that I can trust. How can we fix this? And Sarah tells her that while they might be able to make an attempt at fixing the future, the fact that they are still here shows that she hasn't been stopped. And she asks, well, what do I become exactly? Spidey, you haven't talked yet. Nice future muscles, by the way. He lunges at her, grabbing her by the throat. You become a worse version of yourself than right now. Selfish, reckless, utterly uncaring of anyone you meet here because you're the only real person in the world. Except you don't just shoot anyone anymore. Then he stops her. Miles, you can't tell her. We don't know if she can. Miles turns around and the three of them begin to try and figure out another plan that involves altering her memories again. And while they do this, she begins to sneak off. Once they realize she's leaving, lightning bolts and webbing fly at her as she welcomes herself back to the superhero world. Hope she gets to survive. Miles looks at Vinny. What's up with our aim? And Vinny explains, she believes herself to be the star of the story, and any who oppose her are reduced to clumsy mooks. She runs for it, looking for the border of the panel until she finds it, parkouring over the side of it and into the oblivion of the comic book world again. She ends up tumbling and falling until she finds an establishing shot and she falls into the jungle. Problem is, Sarah is currently the Sorcerer Supreme and can find her easily, so the Future Squad is right behind her. They hit her with a freeze spell and they begin to try and figure this all out again. Sarah suggests messing with her memories, but Vinny explains that that's what gave her these powers to begin with. Except, while Sarah and Vinny are humanely trying to handle the Gwen situation, Miles has had enough and he webs up the two of them before grabbing Gwen and swinging off. She's all excited. Spider-Man is saving me! Thanks, because that whole memory wiping thing was kind of scary. I knew I could count on you to be the true hero, Miles. But then as she's thanking him, he throws her into the tree and he webs her up. I'm gonna kill you. Oh, I totally misread the situation. I need you to understand why, though. Yeah, that's totally fair, Miles. He pulls off his mask. You're just quipping away, and you don't even understand how big of a deal this is for me. I don't kill. Ah, dude, you look like someone who's just ended the presidency. You look old. Stop joking! Do you know how many lives you destroyed? For years you stay like this, a pain in the butt, sometimes helpful, usually not. Honestly, I didn't think much of you, but one day something is going to happen and you really stopped liking us all. I was the first you came for. You revealed my identity to the entire world, and it didn't even take a day before my family was killed. My mom, my dad, my wife, and my child. But that's not all though. You spilled everyone's secrets, revealing terrible things that caused the greatest superhero war of all time. And it was all because it was fun for you. Once we figured out that you were just manipulating everyone, we tried to stop you, but you can just leave reality whenever you want. You became impossible to fight. You know everything, and you may as well be omnipotent. Gwen pauses for a moment though, asking Miles, if she's so powerful, why hasn't she come back to fight you yet? Your brother. You didn't know that he ended up here, and it created a blind spot in your comic book knowledge so we could come back here and stop you. He isn't a character in your world, so you can't link back to the sequence of events. But Miles, I can see your flashback. She's in the comic now. And standing over him is a giant version of future Gwen. She flicks Miles, launching him into the sky. That's right, babies. Hello, beautiful. Gwen calls out, "You killed Spider-Man!" And future Gwen laughs. "You think I killed him? Picture me on a cliff and I'll explain." Future Gwen then picks up her past self and puts her onto the cliffside next to a much smaller version of herself. Much better. And then they look at each other. While his flashback was interesting, I'm not actually giant-sized. Speaking of Spider-Man, have a look. Just as Spider-Man is about to die, he webs his way back up, launching himself towards safety. See? Spidey survives. I could tell by the way I smacked him that it was just the end of the issue. The younger Gwen asks herself, "So, it was a cliffhanger?" Yeah, quite literally. We were on the edge of a cliff and it was the end of the issue. The future Gwen then holds her head. I'm being retconned as we speak. This is confusing. Wait, they retconned my origin? There was no sleep study. I have to make sure you become me. Make sure I become you. From what Spider-Man just told me, I don't want to. Evil future Gwen looks at her. What? Sarah then runs in, hitting future Gwen, and Vinny pops up with Spider-Man climbing up the cliff. Future Gwen realizes exactly what's happening. They're changing my past, and they're weakening me. So they throw Gwen over the side of the cliff with no other option but to kill her, but then future Gwen appears at the bottom to catch her. Vinny and Spider-Man come down to attack, and future Gwen welcomes her younger self to join in any time to save the both of them. But Gwen herself is still confused. She doesn't want to be evil. While she's battling against the three heroes, future Gwen asks her younger self, "Have you even considered for a moment that you were lied to? Maybe this Spider-Man is evil." But as she's convincing herself that maybe it's a lie, she's gaining more and more skills, becoming the evil version of herself once again. And that's when Sarah realizes they need to allow the younger Gwen to live, to help her. Otherwise, she's going to side with the future version of herself and become the omnipotent evil. As the battle continues, evil Gwen begins to vanish out of existence, and Spider-Man sees it happening. He turns to the younger version and he tells her, "You see this now? You don't want to become evil." So evil Gwen has finally had enough, and she lightning bolts everyone and then shoots Spider-Man in the chest with a gun. See, this is why it's cool to be me. Why would you do that? I know this looks bad, little Gwen. Bad? Bad? And future Gwen grabs her and brings her between the panels again. Let's get out of space and time for a second so we can get a little perspective on the situation. Gwen looks at her future self and tells her, "I don't want to be you. I'm gonna do to you what you did to Batroc the Leaper. Do you remember your home life? What you hated so much that you had to get away? Well, yeah. I dropped out of high school. I didn't have a job. I lost all of my friends and my parents were on my case all the time." Nope! Your readers only just saw that in issue 16 of this series. Do you actually remember anything before this? And future Gwen holds up a page of the first appearance of Gwenpool. You see, Gwen, you're a part of this world now, and as far as the comics are concerned, you never existed before that appearance. You read all of the comics, so you know everyone's secret identity, and does that sound like a superhero power to you? Think about it. You were forced to be a henchman for a MODOK. The world doesn't want you to be a hero. Then in front of them, the pages begin to swirl around in a vortex, and the words, "Gwenpool can't kill Spider-Man," appears. You see, you can't break the laws of comics. None of this matters, so you may as well have fun. Blackmail Daredevil, steal the Milano and crash it into Ego, cut a deal with Mephisto, or start summer events. You think Cap joining Hydra was nuts? Wait until you make Eternity do it. It's so much fun! Gwen looks at her evil self. But why? Just because I can? I stopped trying to be good when I made a decision that I thought was right, and then the universe or the writers or whatever decided that I was wrong. I saved a friend and it was used against me, and it was a 10-issue crossover with 9 tie-ins. You tried to stop the school bomber. Then Spider-Man beat you up. And when you thought Cecil was going to be your ghost hacker sidekick, they killed him. And then you saved Bay Ridge and your team left you. You keep going against what the universe wants for you, and it's going to dispose of you. Nobody ever gets killed, Gwen. Spider-Man always comes back. Gwen, with pain in her eyes, looks at her evil version. Yeah, but you hurt Spider-Man. Yeah, I did! And I love Spider-Man. I love all of them. She grabs her future self and she tells her, "I will make sure I never become you. Ever!" And with that, future evil Gwen was wiped out of existence. Gwen is left standing on the endless landscape of the comic pages, and she jumps between the panels back to the jungle, but everyone is missing, even her brother. Crying, she goes to see her friend Sarah, who's now just normal Sarah, and they talk and they discuss about what happened. Sarah helps summon Miles and he swings in to see her, and Gwen informs him that she's done being a mercenary. She's seen where it leads and it's not good. If Peter Parker can figure out how to pay for Aunt May's medicine, then I could figure out how to get pizza. Miles hears Peter's name and he tells her, "Quiet! Quiet! Don't say that too loud!" So Gwen finishes. "You never have to worry about me. Enjoy your family someday." She then sits there, watching as one of her favorite superheroes swings off on another adventure, and she prepares for her next one. In the subways of New York, a man whistles as he gets ready to board his train and stops when he sees the entire platform filled with snakes. Like any reasonable man, he immediately turns and runs, yelling, "Nope!" A short while later, as the police arrive, Officer Gray asks another officer why he didn't just call animal control. The officer says, well, if it was an alligator, sure, but it's a little different. At that moment, Gwen slams her hand on the hood of the squad car, telling them, "Obviously, this has something to do with supernatural forces. Looking for you. I'm a superhero who's here to save the day, so everyone can relax as I take care of the problem and shoot a bunch of snakes." She pulls out her guns heading into the station, and Officer Gray asks, "Is anyone gonna stop her?" And the other officer says, "Well, no." Inside the station, the Snake Master is sitting on his throne of snakes, and he says, "Well, this place is perfect for the Master and his posse of snakes." As he holds one of his snakes up, it suddenly explodes. And while Gwen starts shooting at all of the snakes, she asks, did he seriously decide to claim this place? The Master says that he didn't just pick here because he controls some snakes. It's because he controls all snakes. Just as more snakes begin to slither out of the ceiling, Gwen says that there she goes again, letting her overconfidence betray her. And then one of the larger snakes runs towards Gwen and she screams! The screams travel outside of the station and Gray and her men start to move in. And that's when Gwen walks up telling them, "No problems, the snakes are taken care of." Gray looks around asking where all of the snakes went, and Gwen tells them, "You know, I just went in and showed them who's boss. The Snake Master told me that I was right and that I was the boss, so he left. But don't worry, I'm a superhero now, so no payment is needed unless it's guns. I could really use more guns." Later that night, Gwen heads to her apartment when she sees the pizza guy getting ready to deliver an order, and she shouts that she can take that from him. The man rings the doorbell saying, "Sure, I'll just give it to some random girl running down the hall." And just as Gwen tries to explain that she lives there, the door opens and Cecil, who is currently a large purple mythical creature, tells the man, "Yeah, those are for me." Once the two head inside, Gwen tells Cecil, "You know, you could go out if you want to, just put on a trench coat. No one will notice you in your new body. You have a gift now. You've inherited the body of a mythological creature, and you have actual superpowers now. You're just gonna waste them doing..." And Cecil stops her, telling her, "I'm doing what I liked to do before MODOK murdered me. Can't I just be happy to have a body and that I happen to be inside of a body?" Gwen then says that she's just worried about him is all. Besides, she's got a new plan of what she's going to do next, and that's join the Avengers. Cecil stares for a moment and then he turns back to the computer, telling her, "Good luck." She pulls down her mask, telling him, "All I need to do is show off some more good deeds and I'll be picked up in no time. Just keep looking for that thing that we talked about." Later at Bay Ridge, the criminal Paste Pot Pete spots an armored truck with two guards loading money into it. He yells, "Bay Ridge is starting to look like a nice home for Paste Pot Pete." The guards look back and ask, "Paste Pot Pete? What the hell is Paste Pot? Hang on while I take a picture." While the guards laugh, Pete tells them, "Yeah, you just laugh while I shoot a dollop of adhesive here and there and over there." The guards look at their feet and they see that they're now glued down, and Pete hops into the armored truck and he speeds off. But before he can get far, Vince the Doombot flies down, telling him, "You are not wanted here. You must stop this right now." Pete swerves and ends up crashing into a nearby building, and then he jumps out shooting adhesive to Vince's feet, shouting, "So the Doombot of Bay Ridge is real!" While Vince tries to move his feet, Gwen pokes in, stating she was wondering if he could help her with something, and in return, she would totally deal with this whole situation. All she asks is that since he's an old Doombot, can he find a way to hook her up with meeting Dr. Doom himself? Vince asks her, "What are you talking about? We have to deal with Paste Pot Pete." Completely ignoring Vince's statement, Gwen goes on stating, "I'm ready to fight Dr. Doom, and once I do that, I can totally become an Avenger." Vince shouts that, "You want to fight my maker? You're about to be killed by Paste Pot Pete." Gwen says, "Yeah, about that, I picked up some new moves since we last met. Check it out." Pete begins to spray adhesive at Gwen, and Gwen rolls out of the way. Vince then says, "Wow, you moved out of the way. Incredible moves that you picked up." She then gets back at her feet and charges at Pete, telling herself she just needs to see the borders of space and time, the edges of the comic, and as Gwen grabs Pete, she pushes him out of the comic panel and into nothing. The nothingness of the fourth wall, the space between the comic and the real world. Pete looks at the blank area asking, "What is this?" And Gwen tells him it's nothing. It's time, it's space, it's a lot of things, but for you, it's the gutter. Sorry for doing this, but as Pete begs her, "Please don't leave me here," Gwen lets go, letting Pete fall into oblivion. Back in the comic, Vince asks, "What did you just do?" Pete just disappeared. And Gwen walks back over to Vince telling her, "I have some real superpowers now, and I'm ready to turn those on Dr. Doom. I'm gonna erase him and be taken seriously, so where is he?" Elsewhere, Dr. Doom himself is watching the feed through Vince, stating to himself, "Don't worry about my location. Doom sees you, little girl." A short while later in the subway, Gwen rides on Vince's back as he rockets through the caves asking, "Where are we going?" And Vince tells her, "My facility is up here. It's been in many hands over the years. It was once a bomb shelter, a monster shelter, an actual gateway to hell, but now it's mine." As the two touch down, Vince goes on stating, "I can signal Victor Von Doom here, so if there's going to be a fight, at least it'll be taken away from everyone." Gwen says, "It'll probably mess up the F-line back there," and Vince asks, "What doesn't these days?" Just behind them, another Gwen jumps into frame, and the real Gwen looks back asking, "What was that?" And Vince tells her it's the rocks. We're in a cave, there are rocks. Once the two head in, Gwen looks around at all of the Dr. Doom decor and says that she senses that there's some real Daddy Frankenstein issues here regarding Dr. Doom. A little while later, another Gwen runs alongside the outside of the panels telling her, "Don't mind me, you're gonna understand what's happening in a bit." Suddenly there's a loud "Doom!" and Vince takes his place along the other Doombots, and they all announce, "Latverian Embassy Subterranean Facility Security Online." Gwen tells him, "I'm pretty sure you got some old code mixing you up, so..." And then the Doombots tell Gwen, "You are a foolish child. Victor Von Doom answers before you can even speak." Gwen asks if this is a trap. Well, whatever. As long as the big man shows up, that's all she needs, so let's do this. But before she can finish that sentence, a trapdoor in the floor opens and she goes tumbling in. As she falls, a projection of Doom appears and he says, "Please forgive me about the bots. They were designed when I was in a more melodramatic mood. I was alerted when you told Vincent that you wanted to take Doom out, so his old programming brought you here." She asks, "Wait, if you're the real Dr. Doom, why do you look like War Machine in a hoodie?" Doom sighs, telling her, "We're gonna deal with you later." And Gwen falls into a cell. At this moment in time, if you're wondering, dear viewer, Dr. Doom has decided to become a good guy, and this is his Iron Man style armor that he wears in his book that is happening in conjunction with this Gwenpool book. Gwen starts banging on the door, shouting to Doom to open the door so that she can kill him! And after a few minutes, she realizes he's probably not gonna come. She then remembers that she can just step out of reality itself for a second. So she pulls herself above the panels to see where she needs to go, but all of the future panels just show the same cell. And then she looks back and sees the old pages and thinks, wait, maybe. She jumps back down into her cell and knocks on the door, asking if her future self is out there. And future Gwen tells her, "Yeah, just jump to an earlier page." And Gwen says, "Whoa, spooky talking to yourself and actually getting an answer." With that, she jumps up to pull herself out of the comic panel and she begins to run back to an earlier point in time. Back in the main room, Doom releases Vincent from his control, and as soon as Vincent is freed, he shouts, "You disgusting bat!" Doom snaps his fingers, forcing Vincent to stand straight up and back in line, stating, "Okay, maybe you should just stay here for now." Vincent yells, "I have a life, you know! I'm not just some toy!" And Doom asks, "I do understand that you brought a girl here to wipe me from existence, right? Why is it you despise me so much?" And Vincent tells him, "It's because I believe that you haven't changed." Doom sighs, "No one has. But I'm gonna continue, and maybe someday people will believe it. But I've seen what you've been doing as of late. I'm proud of you." Vincent asks, "Wait, you're proud of me?" Doom goes on telling him, "I've made many Doombots in the years, but I've never made one that looked human." Doom's mask begins to fade, and he holds up his hand, telling Vincent, "Wait a moment, I'm going to fix your gash." Before Doom can repair Vincent, though, Gwen runs in, grabbing the sword and the stone, shouting that she doesn't believe a word he's saying about changing. She's read way too many comics. That gives her an edge to know that he's still one of the main bad guys, and defeating him is gonna give her a chance at actually mattering. But this right here, she can't. All because she showed up in some obviously temporary continuity blip where you're a good guy? Doom tells her, "I'm not sure what to tell you." And Gwen tells her, "Say something, like Richards or something, I don't care." And Doom says, "Richards." And he begins to fire a blast at Gwen. But before it can hit, Gwen phases herself out of reality. She then reappears at Doom's side, slashing downward, ripping through Doom's torso, causing the pages of the comics to tear open, and then individual pages begin to fly out. Doom steps back, asking, why? And then something begins to crawl out of the wound, stating, insolent, worthless, insufferable. The real evil Dr. Doom pulls himself out, telling Gwen, if it is doom that you have craved, it is doom that you will receive. Doom stares at Gwen and Gwen shouts back, stating, hi, I'm Gwenpool and I'm gonna kill you. Doom laughs, of course you are. You have summoned me because you wouldn't want to sully a victory with a lesser manifestation. Gwen says, yeah, pretty much, but you're going down, so we should probably get to that part now. Doom begins to hold out his hands as he charges up a blast and he throws it at Gwen, but she disappears, reappearing right behind him by going between the panels again. Doom starts laughing again, stating, Doom will not fail. Doom simply is and ever shall be. Gwen then grabs Doom from behind, pushing him through the comic panels and then over the edge to fall into nothingness. Back in the real world, Vince starts looking around and he asks, did she? And Gwen tells him, guess we can leave now. Vince shouts, wait, how did you do that? What? Later, as the two head into the streets, Gwen tells Vince to hang on. She's got to call it into the Avengers hotline and report this. But while Gwen tries to get an operator, Vincent says that he still doesn't understand defeating Doom just seems so out there. She says, yeah, kind of anticlimactic, huh? Wait. If it was anticlimactic. Oh, crap. From behind Gwen, a voice tells her, that is a fascinating new dimension that you have discovered, but it is no prison for Doom. Doom rockets down and Gwen says, of course not. I'm not allowed to take him out completely within the first few pages. Doom begins firing blasts at the two of them, asking Gwen, what other tricks do you have? Please don't disappoint me with a new apprentice's Riftwalk spell. She takes out her guns and begins firing, and as the bullets get close, Doom creates a force field to catch them. Vincent then runs up, punching Doom, telling him, no one cares about you, you self-absorbed megalomaniac. Doom gets up asking, a mere Doombot strikes its master? What brings you to such levels of stupidity? Vince braces himself and then yells, because I hate you, Dad! Doom pauses for a moment and he asks, I am found unworthy of the love of my creation? I couldn't possibly care. Doom releases a blast into Vincent's chest, destroying his body, and as Doom asks, where's the girl? Gwen sweeps his legs out from underneath him. She then hops onto Vince's rocket legs, telling him, okay, we need a do-over. Sorry that I unleashed a really bad guy into the world. But before she can get far, Doom flies up to her, telling her, there are no do-overs. And Gwen tells him, well, I don't fully grasp my new powers yet, so I thought. And as Gwen gets ready to phase out, Doom grabs her, telling her, oh no you don't. She kicks herself off of Doom into nothingness, and she asks if he's really threatening her. Fine, he can have her out of here. He's just an ink on a piece of paper. Doom laughs, telling her, this is just another dimension. Doom is in control of this plane as in any other plane. And then another voice tells him that he is correct, and the hoodie-wearing War Machine Doom appears and rips him apart. As the other Doom's body fades into the papers and flies away, Doom says, that was rather interesting, but he is right about one thing. You do not have any kind of magical powers. Gwen sits down, telling him, yeah, this just means that my new powers don't do anything. And that means I'm gonna die soon. As Doom's mask begins fading, he asks, what do you mean? And Gwen looks around, telling him, all around us are comic book pages. When you look down one end, that's where the story's going. So for me, that's what, 2 issues worth? It's gonna end unless I become a supervillain. There was a point when I met my future self, and she was totally evil. So now, I wanted to find a future where I didn't become evil. Even swearing that I wouldn't become evil. But as soon as I said that, hundreds of pages of my future, they just disappeared. So I figured if I could kill Dr. Doom, it would show that I'm important. However, Gwen then looks back at the pages that she's sitting on and she soon sees Paste Pot Pete, except now, he's back to being Trapster. She leans in asking, what the hell is he doing with his old costume? And Trapster says, because it was lame? She then shouts, I can't even off Paste Pot freaking Pete. How the hell did he even get out? Maybe it's just some higher forces agreeing that I'm meaningless. Doom steps back into the real world, grabbing pieces of Vince, putting them back together, telling her that just because you couldn't kill Dr. Doom or Pastepot Pete doesn't mean you're useless. She asks, what is she supposed to do then? Everything that she does inches closer to those last pages. She's stuck in a comic book universe, and this comic book is being canceled. Now, unless she can either kill him or become a bad guy, there's nothing that she can do. Doom starts to fix Vince and tells her, it just sounds to me that denying yourself is killing yourself. Make no mistake. I am who I am no matter what. I didn't get here by denying myself a single thing, including the desire to get better. Gwen then says, wait, are you saying that I should become a villain? And as Doom rockets off, he says, I did not say that, but good luck. She sighs and says that may not be what he said, but no matter what, she has to become a villain. In the New York City apartment of the Leaper, Batroc sings to himself as he looks into the sky. and sees a flying casino. He walks out onto his balcony, twisting his mustache, telling himself that it is such a beautiful night for a good old-fashioned heist. Once he readies himself, he leaps off into the air, towards the floating airship. And aboard that airship, the villain Chance stands out onto the deck welcoming his guests, telling them that they've worked hard to get everyone through security as quickly as possible. One of the guests asks if it isn't a bad idea to have a casino, just floating in the air. And Chance laughs, stating that he can understand their concern, but how about they make a wager on it and start the evening off right? The guest nervously laughs back, stating that it's all right, but Chance tells him, oh, come on. As you can see, a robbery attempt is already underway. Just outside of the ship, 3 costumed villains fly down onto the deck, and as they get close, a force field appears, zapping them and stops their chances of getting in. Chance yells, see? There's no chance that I would craft this luxury vehicle without proper security. This facility is constantly and meticulously monitored for metahumans. If they try to come on board, they're easier to brush away. Plus, there's some really neat magic stuff installed too. So if you have superpowers, you're not getting on this ship, which means Batroc, who doesn't have superpowers, can easily sneak onto the ship without setting off the security alarms. He climbs up, looking at his watch, asking, where is she? We have a schedule we need to. But before he can finish, 2 bouncers look at Batroc and ask if they can see his invitation. He tells them, of course, just let me go through these pockets. After a few moments, Gwen runs in, grabbing Batroc by the arm, shouting, there you are, Dad! The invitations are right here! Once she shows the bouncers the invitations, Batroc pulls her aside, stating that he's glad she can make it. She quietly yells that he could have boarded with the rest of them and not jump on board. She didn't jump through the panels of the comics to steal these invitations for nothing. The 2 make their way through the casino area and they head into the upper areas. And Batroc says the vault should be up here somewhere. Time to change and get to work. After ditching the disguises, he says that this is what he lives for. The thrill, the adrenaline, this is life. Gwen pulls down her mask, telling him, yeah, this is all right. I tried being a hero and that didn't work. So I'm ready to be a villain. Just up ahead, Batroc stops in the front of the large vault and says, there it is! Behind that door is millions and very easily transportable cryptocurrency. Gwen tells him, how are we supposed to get back the door? Batroc says that he thought she was going to use her new powers. She looks at the vault and says that she can't. There are limits to it. Without ever laying eyes on the inside, she can't just jump to the scene. Not unless they had a prologue with a janitor in it or something. Batroc snaps his fingers and says, I got it! You can see sound effects, right? Gwen says yes. He begins kicking the vault door over and over until it finally breaks open and says, see? I didn't hear a sound. She holds up all the whacks and the kicks and says, yeah, I just grabbed all the bams so that no one could hear a thing. So Gwen looks through the vault door and says that she thought this was supposed to be USB drives, not hundreds of gold bars. Doesn't matter anyway. I can handle this. If they just start throwing the gold into bags, she'll toss it off panel. As the last bag is thrown, the bouncers come running in shouting to step away from the gold, and Batroc quickly jumps in, kicking the bouncers, allowing Gwen and him to escape. But before they can get far, Chance stops them in the hallway. He points his gun, stating he doesn't know how they got into the vault, but he can assure them they'll have a long and painful chat about it. After a few seconds, one of the sacks of gold bars then appears and hits Chance in the back of the head. And Gwen tells him, fine, you can have your money back. Gwen and Batroc head back onto the ship deck. But before Gwen can ask what they're going to do, Batroc grabs her by the hand and leaps off. He lands feet first onto the nearby building where Gwen gracefully lands and rolls onto the roof. As she gets up, the sacks of gold begin to appear and they fall on Batroc and she shouts, well, there you have it. I got the gold. Later in Batroc's apartment, Batroc stacks the gold on the table and Gwen asks, so this is super villainy, right? And Batroc tells her, well, it might not be as bad as it sounds. We did rob a villain. And Gwen then asks, so what, we pulled a Robin Hood? We're supposed to be super villains. He gets up and asks, why do you want to become a villain? I picked this job so that I could give you your share of the gold. It'll help for when you want to become a hero. She pauses for a moment and laughs, stating, I should get going. I will go out and I will trade the gold for actual cash. Gwen stops again and sighs, telling Batroc, you're not going to be like this much longer. When this book is over, the writers aren't going to think of Batroc the Leaper this way. So before that happens, I want to say I'm sorry. She jumps up, hugging Batroc, telling him, this is goodbye. And as she sniffs, she tells him, you smell really nice. And he shouts, I just got new mustache wax. As Gwen leaves, Batroc says, she's crazy, but she did well. We'll talk soon. Gwen sulks, stating, I really doubt it. Can't kill Dr. Doom and be a hero. I can't knock off a casino and start a career as a great villain. Everything is coming to an end. What am I supposed to do about Cecil, Megatony, the Terrible Eye? Batroc might turn into a dumb joke third stringer again, but at least he would survive. But the supporting cast? They're just gonna disappear once this is over. As Gwen cries, a voice asks, excuse me, who said anything about being done? Gwen looks up off panel and sees herself with a lot longer hair, but not evil looking.
After a few moments of silence, future Gwen asks, "What? Nothing to say?" Gwen looks at herself and then turns saying, "No, you're good. No more future alternate Gwens, thank you." Future Gwen jumps onto the panel in front of Gwen and tells her, "Hang on, your series is nearly over, but I'm here to tell you that it is not the end. You survive." Gwen hops onto the panel, sitting down saying, "You don't look much older than me. Maybe it's the hair?" And future Gwen tells her that people don't actually see age in the Marvel Universe unless it's very sudden and literal in the title. Old Man Logan. But that's the difference between the true future and the future of the evil one that you've rejected. You see, you have an outsider's perspective, not just what's happening in February 2018 when Gwenpool 25 comes out. It's happening in June 2019 in trade, and so on. Right now, someone is reading this very moment, years after the people who made this comic died. It's not just here. You're gonna be in video games. There's gonna be toys, guest spots in other titles, fan art, fanfics, roleplay Twitter accounts, and all that stuff. Then someday, one of those fans might get a pro gig and remember to stick you in some new version of the Great Lakes Avengers or something. She sighs, stating, "That sounds an awful lot like Grandma's not gone, but she'll live on in our hearts kind of a thing." Future Gwen says, "If Grandma could do what we can do with panels, she would be horrifying." Either way, we're gonna go on to do great things, like finally rescue Cecil from the mystical beasts, and even bring him back to life. The same goes for the supporting cast. They're all gonna get to live too. See, you were all supposed to be a joke, sell some comics, get a laugh, and then be forgotten. But you hung around, and people started to realize that your powers were kind of dangerous. So much so that you should be a villain, but instead, you kept having a life of your own, and then you learned to control it more than they realized. When you refused to turn, you knew that you were giving up your future. At first, you came to this world thinking that no one really mattered because they weren't real. But then you did everything not to hurt them. That's being a hero. And doing things like that will buy some time around these parts, even if it isn't in the pages of the unbelievable Gwenpool Volume 1. Future Gwen then points to the bracelet on Gwen's wrist, asking, "What's that?" And Gwen says that Dr. Strange gave it to her on the last page after helping Cecil. Since they kind of just flew through it, she didn't get to figure out what the counter was for, but she's pretty sure she has an idea. On the next page, Gwen hops over to the Skrull War of 20XX and fights with everyone to, well, defeat the Skrulls, including her Skrull self. She then jumps to New York to help Spider-Man stop the Green Goblin. And as Gwen webs up the Goblin's neck, she laughs, shouting, "Look, I'm Spider-Gwen! Look, all I have to do is this." She then hits the button for the web shooters, runs out of fluids, and says, "Oh, well, spider farts," and begins falling while still hanging onto the Goblin. Suddenly, a web net appears and the actual Spider-Gwen swings down asking, "What did you call yourself?" Spider-Gwen helps Gwen up, and Gwen says she, didn't think that you lived in this multiverse, don't mind me. Later, Gwen and the Spider family all sit on a roof eating pizza, and Miles says, "Just one Goblin attack on Halloween? Not bad." Spider-Man then pokes Gwen, stating, "Hey, check it out. I'm pretty sure that's one of yours." Gwen looks down at a group of kids trick-or-treating, and she sees a young red-haired girl with a headband wearing a Gwenpool costume, and Gwen just smiles. The next page brings Gwen to Brooklyn to meet up with Megatoni and everyone, including Pig Gwen. She looks at Pig Gwen and says that it looks like she was taken care of. And Tony tells her that Pig Gwen insists on wearing her costume, you know. Then a voice calls out stating, "How touching!" And MODOK flies down, shouting, "It looks like all of my employees still have time to hang out while I was sent to space. Repercussions will be appropriate." But as MODOK looks around, he sees the Gwenpool mercenaries and shouts, "Never mind, you're all fired, goodbye." The next page, there's some time with Moon Girl and the Power Pack kids. Next, it's stopping by the police precinct to see Officer Gray. But as Gwen looks at her watch, she says that she's not sure how she got here, but she's got to go. There's only a few pages left, and she is so not spending the last of them here. Goodbye. A short while later, the young girl that Gwen saw trick-or-treating grew up a little and is often picked on in school. On one of those days, Gwen shouts to the bullies to lay off the nerd. And while that's happening, she's riding Fing Fang Foom, and Foom shouts, "Bing Fang Foom, hungry for mean and bad children." Foom then flies down, scaring the bullies, and as the little girl looks up, Gwen tells Foom, "Good work. Now you can bury yourself under a mountain or whatever it is you do." On the next page, Gwen spends some time with Squirrel Girl Doreen Green while she begins to work on fixing up Vincent the Doombot. As Doreen gets finished, Cecil tells Gwen that he did it. He finally found her brother. So Gwen and Doreen head into hell to fight Mephisto. And with one throw from Doreen, Gwen kicks Mephisto in the head, knocking him out. She jumps down to untie her brother Teddy, and he says that he thought that she had died when they came back into the comic world. He thought that he had died in the devil. but she tells him it's okay now. That's the funny thing. We're in hell. The devil here is real and very punchable. Why haven't more superheroes just done that? Doreen hears and thinks about it and says, wait. There's a reason why they don't. Just give me a second to figure it out. Gwen looks at her watch and sees that she only has 4 pages left, and she shouts that she's got to go. There's another time that she has to be in. Later, in the future, Gwen stops by a hospital to see the little girl that she rescued, who is now a grown old woman. She lays in her bed and says Gwenpool is by her side once again, like when she was trick-or-treating, or when Fing Fang Foom Gang. How is she not aged? Gwen tells her it's because she put on a costume, and the old woman tells her, see, you aren't just a background character, like me. After a few moments of silence, the nurse comes in and tells her not to worry, she's just sleeping. Gwen says that she's glad that she got to see her one last time, but it's time to go. She climbs back into the panels to let the old woman sleep, and she looks back on her life and hears something. Off in the distance, she hears herself speaking about how it was the end of the last issue. She turns back and tells everyone, thanks for reading. Now, if you'll excuse me. She heads to the last page of the last issue, and she asks her younger self, who said anything about being done? I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to check out the main channel if you want to see these videos as they're coming out, or just hit like and subscribe to see the next one we're putting out. We're trying to put out 3 of these a week here, and we hope to have you part of the family. Thank you.